Okay. Ishkadori Naharan of the Ishkadori Conte of the Winter Natira. On behalf of FISTA, Federation of Irish Salmon and Sea Trout Anglers, I would like personally to congratulate you who have turned out here today to express your concern, not just for the danger being posed to your angling, to your recreation, but in fact, if this horrendous plan that has been cooked up by the government to give Ireland a massive tonnage of artificial farmed salmon would destroy the entire coastline of Ireland. It would actually destroy tourism. It is one of the most potentially dangerous time bombs against the environment that has ever been foisted upon Ireland. Now, what's it all for? Some people, particularly people in the audience stopping to listen, will be puzzled. And they'll say, but sure, we can go into the shops and get a bit of smoked salmon for Christmas. Fair enough, reared in salmon farms. But in fact, all the health bodies in the world have said that farmed salmon, because of the way it's reared and the need for very dangerous chemicals to be used, is actually cancerogenic, and that you're advised not to eat any more than one portion a week. What does it mean for Ireland? First of all, it's been boasted it's going to provide 500 jobs. 500 jobs to do what? To put 150,000 tons of farmed salmon around our coast. At the moment we have between 10 and 13,000, and already the damage that has done to the wild trout, sea trout, and to the decline of the salmon has been immense. And can you imagine that if that tonnage at the moment, which is dispersed along many different farms along the coast, that one as big as that is going to be put into Bantry Bay, it will destroy Bantry Bay completely, not alone for other aquatic species, but the amount of pollution will be unbelievably large. Now, I have not seen people, anglers like you, coming out like this for some years. You came out in Killarney some 6 years ago to get rid of the drift nets, and that was the highlight of what the anglers will do. But I can also detect amongst you another anger and another worry rising that reminds me of the Great Rod War itself, when anglers had to actually take the fight to the government to protect the right of Irish men and women and children to go out and freely fish their own rivers and lakes, and not to have them polluted by a den plan to put smoke cages in all the major lakes. And I am delighted to see that not alone are there Cork anglers here today, but there's anglers from different parts of the country that made their way even down from Fermanagh, from Galway, and from the East Coast. And it's vitally important that you anglers get the message across that it's not just yourselves you're here protesting for. You're protesting for the right to keep Ireland clean and green. Surely that's the one thing we're entitled to have. Whereas this plan means that the Chinese, with all their massive money, want to get farmed salmon. Multinational companies will take whatever artificial profits are made. We'll get a questionable 500 jobs, and we will be left with the dirt, the debris, and disease from it. Now, if anyone doubts what I'm saying, Dr. Roderick OSullivan will speak after me and give you the scientific side of it. What's most important is this, that this is not just an angler problem. If if the number of cages and the tonnage being proposed goes ahead, even in Bantry Bay, every river and lake in Ireland is under threat for the simple reason that there are diseases associated with cage farm salmon. Anything that's caged in mass, you always have disease. In Norway, salmon escaped and they had a parasitic disease, I think was called Gyrodactylus, which affects all fish. They got up the rivers in Norway, and wherever it happened, they had to sterilize, kill those rivers from the tops of the mountains where the first trickle of water came from the melting snow right out to the fjords. And it took 10 years to restore some of those rivers back to get fly life and worms and invertebrates back, because this will destroy all forms of fish life and aquatic life. And it's almost certain with the tonnage that's been proposed for Ireland it will happen here. We do not have the luxury to sterilise our rivers and to destroy our fish species. So it's a fight that must be taken very, very seriously. We cannot afford to lie back. The anglers proved in the Great Rod War that they had the tenacity, the courage, and they pulled together. And it's important in this phase now that irrespective of what angling federation you're with or not with, that there be unity across the board in preserving the wild salmon at the sea trout of Ireland and keeping the shores of Ireland clean for your children to bathe in. This is something that we cannot afford to lose. And I will finally say that this is just the beginning. It has to be a rolling on campaign right around the country. And it's not just anglers. For God's sake, the ordinary people in the street have to realise that their country can be devastated by an ill-conceived plan that must be stopped in its tracks immediately. And outside Simon Coveney's office, I will say on behalf of FISTA that we personally will pursue this thing until victory is assured, and victory is the cleanliness of Irish rivers and seas.
Thank you, Richard. Next speaker is Kieran O'Shea from Safe Bantry Bay.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Safe Bantry Bay, I would like to thank the organisers of this protest for giving me the opportunity to say a few words on behalf of Safe Bantry Bay. It's fantastic to see so many here today attending the action meeting which is being held here in Carrigaline in order to get our message across to Minister Cohen that the expansion of salmon farming is not wanted. This day of action is as a result of a very successful meeting recently held in Bantry, which was attended by representatives from all over Ireland. The Department of Marine put a hold on the expansion of salmon farming over the last 4 years because of the threat of prosecution by the European Commission due to the lack of Ireland of the environmental controls. The vast majority of our lowland lakes are polluted. In 2007, Lough Corrib, the largest lake in Ireland, was declared severely contaminated and became unusable as a source of drinking water for Galway. As salmon farming is a polluting industry, the same damage could take place in our estuaries. The proposed salmon farm at Shothead, Bantry Bay, is being used as a test case by the Department in negotiations with the EU for other similar applications on the west coast. The Department is ignoring basic safety recommendations for salmon rivers. In 1994, a report compiled by the Irish Ministry of Marine recommended that fish farms not be allowed any closer than 20 kilometres from any wild salmon river. In 2003, the World Wildlife Fund and Atlantic Salmon Federation stated that this report was never published because of the aquaculture industry pressure. Inland Fisheries Ireland has proposed a moratorium on salmon farming. The Fraser River on the Canadian west coast is home to the sockeye salmon. This is a vast river, and its wild salmon numbers have been severely depleted since the establishment of salmon farming in its estuary. The Cohen Commission, appointed by the Canadian government, recommended a moratorium on salmon farming in salmon estuaries until 2020 to give time to adequately investigate the real damage being done by sea lice from the salmon cages. Even in Norway, 52 Norwegian salmon rivers and fjords have been off limits for aquaculture developments as a measure to protect wild salmon runs since 1989. If the government has any respect for wild salmon returning to rivers in Ireland, they will not allow these licences to be granted. The main argument by government bodies is the creation of jobs. Yes, we agree, but not at the cost of so many others. Can you imagine what would happen to jobs if wild salmon returning were endangered? It would have catastrophic consequences for the tourism industry, an industry this government drastically is trying to promote and grow. We have met all our West Cork public representatives, TDs and county councillors in relation to the application for the extension of salmon farming in Bantry Bay. While they were quite helpful, they pleaded that A, they were not up to speed on environmental pollution issues, and B, issues of salmon licence applications is being held in the department in Dublin, so that the matter is out of their hands. We accepted none of these arguments. First of all, as public representatives, people we elect, they have a responsibility to inform themselves on issues that affect the local communities, and secondly, all issues and important issues that affect the whole country. They say that this issue is complicated, so we presented them with full information on the subject. We stated that they are public representatives and that this issue is of great concern to the public and cannot be ignored by anybody in a position of influence. Our website is now known worldwide and has received messages of support and comments from international sources. We are in contact with the EU Commission, researching and sourcing information. We distributed 7,000 information leaflets in the Bantry Bay area. Letters requesting support were sent to all 166 TDs, 60 senators and local county councillors. Our campaign to inform the public about the disastrous effects of salmon farming is ongoing. Our message to everyone is that salmon farming is a polluting industry, would result in the Bantry Bay site 2 jobs being created. But unfortunately, the possibility of 2 jobs in this case is to endanger the livelihoods of numerous pot and scallop fishermen, residents, the tourist industry and 6 wild salmon rivers. I am speaking to you here today as a fisherman who, if this licence at Shothead is granted, will be hugely affected. We will be denied access to fishing grounds where my family have had the right to fish for generations. I believe this to be wrong. For years people have put up with a lot, but there comes a stage when enough is enough. In September this year, the Aquaculture Licensing Appeals Board turned down the application for aquaculture development in Manus Bay, West Cork, on grounds the site was not suitable, as it did not have a sufficient water flushing rate. The same argument applies at Shothead, as the Cork County Council 1988 water management study of Bantry Bay proves that the water exchange in the bay is not good, due to the prevailing southwesterly wind. This industry will harm our clean bay and our good name as an area to stay and visit. Our message to you is to keep contacting our public representatives and request them to protect our jobs and our clean environment. Our message to the Minister of Marine is to protect our estuaries and wildlife and ensure the sustainability of so many current jobs. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Kieran. Our next speaker now is Glenda Powell from the Backwater.
Thank you. We are gathered here today from all corners of this island. What is our mission? It's to strive to safeguard our wild salmon and sea trout, their marine habitat and inland waterways. It's to ensure their continued existence. As a teacher, I'm aware that there are many people watching this protest today, and they're probably wondering just what on earth all the fuss is about. I am not a scientist, but what I do know is this. If these salmon farms are granted the go-ahead, then this will probably lead to the extinction of our native salmon and sea trout in all of our rivers and lakes in Ireland. As an angler, I was once asked to write about why I fish. And for days I pondered over this question. I knew I really liked fishing. I enjoyed being beside the river. But there was something much, much deeper than this. Something that I could feel in my soul. I eventually wrote, "It is the hope, the wonder, the childlike excitement and the never-ending learning that captures me. It is the Peter Pan syndrome, the waders, the puddles, the sausages on the campfire, the kettle brewing and fishing in the rain. It is the flowing river, like life itself. It keeps on moving over obstacles, turning and twisting on its way to the sea." You see, it's not about how many fish we catch or kill. Most of us anglers are trying to conserve our future salmon stocks already by practicing catch and release and only killing the occasional fish for the table. It is about having the opportunity to fish, the opportunity to pass our sport on to future generations, and to be able to continue to protect and love our native salmon, the king of fish. It has been stated that by having fish farms at sea, that this will increase the number of jobs in rural Ireland. Yes, this may be the case, temporarily, but how many jobs will be lost when our native salmon and sea trout become extinct because of these farms? Angling knows no divides. It brings people and communities together. It builds bridges and creates jobs on our rivers, in our valleys, and on our lakes. As a game angling instructor, I have a wonderful job. It has been my privilege to take people fishing who are disabled, people who have problems with depression, people who have addictions, people who are out of work and trying to return to work, mother and daughter groups, fathers and sons, cancer victims, stag and hen parties and corporate groups. You see, fishing can and should be part of our daily lives and should be available to everyone. Why then can our government not see the need to protect what we already have, our natural native fish? Why can they not see the need to protect the jobs that this natural resource already brings to our country through angling tourism, both from the home market and from overseas? Why are the government not prepared to protect our angling guides, or gillies and casting instructors' jobs that this resource already sustains? Have they thought about how many guest houses, angling lodges, hotels, village pubs, restaurants, corner shops, but to mention a few, they are dependent on anglers already? Today, we stand together as one voice, with one mission, which is to protect our native salmon and sea trout. It's with hope that our message helps our native fish to overcome this obstacle in their mission to survive. Thank you. I have a letter that was given to me from the North East Anglers Federation, from the Secretary Paddy and Jim Cawley, the Chairman, from Dundalk in County Louth. This letter is representing angling clubs from the Castletown, Fane, Dee, Glyde and Boyne rivers in the North East region of Ireland, and I was asked if I would read it on behalf of them. The above federation are totally opposed to salmon farms off the Irish coast and the negative impact these would have on wild sea trout and salmon stocks. If these go ahead, this could have a devastating effect on fishing in Ireland, with a knock-on effect on tourism and the economy in general. We fully back the efforts of the No Salmon Farms at Sea and other bodies campaigning to protect our wild Atlantic species. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda. Our next speaker over there is from Cohen. Brian Kern, please.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Curran and I'm from Inbrin in County Galway. I live in the shores of Galway Bay. And I'm here not just as an angler, not just as a person that supports the sport of angling, but also as someone that cares about the environment. Over the years, anglers have been to the fore in looking after our streams, our rivers and our lakes in this country. They have suffered pollution and we have been the watchdogs. And if it wasn't for us putting pressure on different bodies, our streams and rivers and lakes would not be as good as they are today. We could certainly do with improving, but we're getting there. We also have to thank the EU for their efforts in curbing the IFA, who has led the charge in polluting either through pig slurry or excessive amounts of fertilisers on our fields, which have leached into our streams, our rivers and our lakes. I'm glad to see that in this past number of years, the farming community has learnt what the problems of pollutions have caused, and they're doing their best to curb it. Again, with the help of the EU, who has curtailed the amount of fertiliser going into our rivers and streams. We are now faced with a similar situation occurring in our marine environment. It would appear that the problem is moving from our inland situation to our inshore situation. This is a major threat, primarily to our salmon and sea trout, and to our stocks, not only just in localised bays, but I believe all around Ireland we will suffer the consequences of allowing this situation if this proposals go ahead. It is not only in Galway Bay or Bantry Bay that these cages will be put in. This is only the start of things to come. If they get away with putting them in Galway Bay and Bantry Bay, they will put them in all along the northwest, the west, the southwest coasts of Ireland. And this is where our national stocks of salmon will be curtailed and destroyed, because our smolts coming out from these bays will be attacked by lice and parasites and diseases caused by these cages. I don't call them salmon farms. I don't like to use the word farms and make it a derogatory sort of term. These cages are salmon concentration cages. We are going to have 7 million salmon in these cages in Galway Bay. Do they think that nature in the long term will not take a hand in this situation? And what is going to happen when it does? When we have the storms of the magnitude of, say, 1 in 150 years, instead of the 1 in 50 years that BIM is planning for. I don't consider that these cages will remain, given the way global warming is occurring and the winds and storms that are occurring with more and more frequency.
I don't worry, it served its purpose now anyway.
I believe we all must oppose the proposal to put these cages in place. It'll be too late if they get putting them in situ. Now is the time before Simon Coveney makes the decision to allow his own department to license these cages before the damage is done to our wild stocks of salmon and sea trout. And not only, as a previous speaker has said, it's not only the salmon and sea trout that will be harmed, but the shellfish, the lobster, the prawn, the shrimp, all of these will be wiped out from the magnitude of chemicals that will be used on these cages. I believe the only answer is not to allow this proposal to go ahead, and that all existing cages should be taken out of our marine environment. We don't need the industrialisation of these bays. Let us keep the marine clean, and let us put people and the marine before profit. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Our last speaker now there from London is Dr. Roderick OSullivan. evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for turning up today in sunny Carrigaline. And a very special thanks to those of you who've travelled long distances. I know some of you have come from Tyrone and the north of Ireland and from Donegal. So thank you very much for your support. 20 years ago I wrote a book on the side effects of farm salmon. And for 20 years I've battled to fight the side effects of this industry. But I can tell you that nothing has changed in the last 20 years. The Department of the Marine, it still refuses to listen to any other voice other than its own. And with you, the taxpayers' money, it encourages and supports the proposed reckless explosion of salmon farming. So here in front of Mr. Calvany's offices today, we, that's I and FISTA, would like to lodge 4 very public objections. Number 1, we object to the building of giant salmon farms and to the massive expansions of others because they are killing off more and more of our wild salmon and sea trout, threatening them with extinction in certain waters. Our second objection is to the huge volumes of filth and toxic wastes from these farms polluting our waters. Bord Iascaigh Mhara's proposed mega complex of farms off Inishgear in the Aran Islands will be the same weight equivalent as 300,000 sheep or 100,000 pigs. So the volumes of pollutants entering into the local waters will be unacceptably high. Number 3, we object to the huge volumes of insecticides, fungicides and dangerous chemicals that will be flushed into our shallow bays and estuaries. Some of these chemicals have been used illegally, others cause cancer, and some are banned in other parts of the world. But the Department of the Marine has always permitted salmon farmers to use what they want, and they are simply allowed to regulate themselves, which is unique in any other industry in the world. And our fourth objection is we object to the gross exaggeration in the number of jobs that will be created by Bord Iascaigh Mhara's complexes. Today, salmon farming is highly mechanized. It needs less and less workers, not more and more. And the few menial jobs created will be cancelled out by the local job losses in tourism, angling, and shellfish businesses. Now, over a year ago, the Norwegian government gave the Nobel Peace Prize to Liu Xiaobo, the famous Chinese civil rights activist. Now, the Chinese government responded by refusing to buy any more Norwegian salmon. So our Minister for the Marine, Mr. Cohen, hopped over to Shanghai and agreed to supply the Chinese with as much salmon as they wanted. Now, this will require the construction of huge industrialized-sized farms. So, Bord Iascaigh Mhara's complex earmarked for Galway Bay will be twice the size of Inishgear itself. And the Minister intends to build many more similar complexes along the west coast, for which you, the taxpayer, will cough up 70 million euros per structure. And these fish will be organic fish. Now, just think about it. These fish will be doused with insecticides, they'll be fed colorants to keep their flesh pink, they'll be dosed with antibiotics, their food will be laced with anti-lice chemicals and animal bone meal, and they will be vaccinated and crossbred for maximum growth. They will be 4 times fatter than any wild salmon. And in my book, foisting such fish on the public as organic is a sham. The only agency describing salmon reared in such conditions as organic are Bord Iascaigh Mhara. The term organic has become a cheater's charter because it has simply no legal standing. Now, to begin with the building of his mega farms, Mr. Cohen has bizarrely asked Bord Iascaigh Mhara to apply to himself for a license to build these farms. You couldn't really make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen, because as soon as the license is granted, Bord Iascaigh will hand over the complex to someone else to run. And you can bet your next wage packet that it will be the Norwegian John Fredrickson, owner of Marine Harvest, who controls the majority of salmon production in Ireland. But let's spare a thought for poor old Mr. Fredrickson. He needs the money because he's only worth £11.7 billion. And where will the huge profits go? Will they go to build new hospitals or schools or playing fields for the kids? No. Much of the rental from these complexes will be divvied out amongst the big boys of Bord Iascaigh and into their pension funds. Mr. Fredrickson will shovel his extra millions into the Norwegian banks, and Mr. Cohen will win the political brownie points he so eagerly seeks. The big losers will, of course, be you, the public, and your children, and the poor old Irish environment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this to me smacks of the good old Celtic tiger again. These huge, untried complexes are based on the same Alice in Wonderland planning, the same selfish greed, and the same refusal to listen to common sense. Well, common sense is what we've brought here today. And we're here to tell the Minister of the Marine that we do not believe the garbage handed out to us by Bord Iascaigh. And neither do we accept the trash trotted out to us by the Minister himself. We here today, and I think I speak for you all, we refuse to listen to any more lies. We refuse to have our fish destroyed and our country and waterways polluted and degraded. Mr. Cohen, no mega salmon farms.